So in this video, we're going to be looking at the profitability index, which is something you need to understand when going through the capital budgeting chapter within an intro to finance course within your undergrad, or even a recap of a finance class in your MBA or CFA level 1. In this video, you're going to be given exposure to 2 exam-like questions, and you're going to be given all the steps, right? Every method that you would need in order to solve a problem like this, like a pro. So I know I like to talk a lot, so if I speak too much, if I'm not going fast enough, don't hesitate to follow the timestamps and really learn at your own pace. This is meant to be a comprehensive tool that can help you out. So let's jump right into it. So in this question, we have the following. Suppose that Shai Designs wants to open a new architectural division in Dubai. However, the CEO is unsure of the viability of this project. And you're given the following cash flows in order to assess whether this project is good. So the project will have an initial investment of $295,000. It'll have a cash flow of $75K in year 1, $112,500 in year 2, and $170,000 in year 3. Okay. Then for year 4, the last year, you're going to have a cash flow of $215,000. Now, our mission in this question, what we're really trying to work for, solve for, is a profitability index. So they want to know, what is the profitability index of this project? Now, you want to solve for a profitability index of this project, knowing that the discount rate is equal to 10.28%. So before we proceed, I'm a big fan of identifying, well, what the heck is the formula we need here in order to solve for a profitability index type of question? So that's the first thing that we're going to do. And that's something that I would recommend you do when you're studying for your final exam or a group project or assessment. Always identify the formula that is needed for this question. And then it's often a game of the missing piece of the puzzle. You got to solve for it. They're going to give you some information that is going to be, helpful and needed here. So let's go to the top of this page, and I'm going to highlight the formula and also a little, some tips and tricks that you could use to your advantage. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, such that it's like nice and big for you. Okay. So the profitability index formula. Let's go about it. In other words, also called a PI. Now this formula is very straightforward. It's actually very easy to remember. All that you're going to need to do, so I'll zoom out a little bit. All that you're going to need to do is the following. You're going to look at the present value of your cash inflows divided by the present value of your cash outflows. And don't you worry, that may sound like a mystical language, that may not sound like normal English, but we're going to make sense of these 2 different titles, so the numerator and the denominator. We're going to break them down and really make them something that you could digest and really understand and internalize in an easier way. So the denominator here is going to be the present value of cash outflows. Okay. So this is awesome. Now that we have this information, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the numerator in yellow, and we're going to write up what this really means. So the present value of your cash inflows is simply, well, what is the sum of all your future cash flows that are discounted? So of all your future discounted cash flows. So you could call it of all your discounted cash flows. And don't you worry, we're going to build a little timeline to display everything here. Okay. And then your denominator, well, what's really funny is that that's simply going to be your initial investment for most of these questions. It's simply going to be your initial investment for most of these questions. Perhaps if you're dealing with more comprehensive, like high-level questions, they may require you to actually look at a cash outflow maybe at year 10 or somewhere in the future, but that's extremely rare. So This is typically your initial investment. Okay, typically your CF0. So we're going to say equal to CF0, i.e. your initial investment. Just like that. So now we have our formula. It's really all that we need. Profitability index. So your present value of cash inflows divided by the present value of your cash outflows. Now we just mentioned that your cash inflows will just be the sum of all your future cash flows that were discounted to today's value. How do you discount cash flows? It's simple. You're just going to take those individual payments and you're going to put them over 10.28% for their given years. Okay? Very easy. I'll give you an example and I'll show you 2 ways of solving for it. Now for your present value of cash outflows, typically when dealing with an intro to finance class, especially for your undergrad, it's going to be a simple process. All that you got to do is identify your initial investment. All right. That's the money you spent today. In other words, we also call this CF0. Now, in more complex courses or in projects, for example, you may have different cash outflows spread out your timeline. But once again, typically this won't be the case. And in this question, it is not the case. All right. So with that said, before we go to draw our timeline to really visualize what the heck is going on and to then highlight the ways that we're going to solve for this, I would like to just go through our question one more time and just identify the different numbers that were provided to you. That's always really good practice when practicing for your final exam. Obviously, on your final exam, you may decide to be a little bit quicker, depending on the volume of questions you have to deal with and depending on the time you were given. So let's go ahead and let's do just that. So I'm going to zoom in again a little bit such that I'm able to write cleanly. And when you review this document, it is something that's actually pleasant and not something that's stressful. So our initial investment here, okay, is $295,000. This is going to be our CF0. So you could go ahead and write this as being 295K. All right. And at year 1, we have our first payment. We could call this payment 1 being equal to 75K. Now, of course, different schools, different programs, different countries, or whatever, you may have a different way of writing or like annotating these different figures. That's totally fine. As I like to say, all paths lead to Rome. So you just want to be able to, highlight these pieces of information because they're important. How you decide to name them is really up to you. And for sure, in your class, you may have a different way of going about it. For example, McGill does it differently than Concordia, and CFAs may be doing it differently than myself. So it's really about finding what works best for you. And then we're going to have our last payment here, payment 4, which is equal to 215K. Awesome. Now we know our mission, that's clear. We're just going to highlight our discount rate as well. So K is equal to 10.28%. That's awesome. We have all of the information in the question that's highlighted. It makes sense to us. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw up a timeline so you're able to see a little bit what this is looking like, and also a different way for us to highlight the formula within our timeline. You'll see what I mean in a second. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to zoom in again a little bit. I know that I'm taking my time, so please don't hesitate to skip through the video because every single bit of this question or every single bit of this video really tries to give you a comprehensive view. So no time is lost, but if you're more advanced, then I totally understand that you just want to see the last bit of this portion of the video. That's totally fair, okay? So we're just trying to be painfully comprehensive here, such that you really have everything you need, depending on where you're at in your process. So let's draw a quick timeline. It's going to be slightly helpful for us. We know that we're going to have t equals 0, t equals 1, t equals 2, t equals 3. Go ahead and put t equals 4. Awesome. So the reason why this is relevant is because we're going to put our initial investment, right, as being minus 295K. And we're going to put all of our cash inflows, see what I did there, onto our timeline as well. So we have 75K for payment 1. We're going to have payment 2, which in this case, it was 112.5K. We're going to have our payment 3, which if I'm not mistaken was 170K. And then we're going to have payment 4, which in this case was 215K. So that's awesome. Now, the reason why I took the time to really highlight these pieces is because really what we're doing here, you'll see in a sec, is we're just gonna kind of visualize what we wrote up on this paper or on this sheet, that the present value of cash inflows is one portion of our PI formula, then the present value of cash outflows is another portion of our formula. Notice how this is going to be extremely easy for us. Because right here, we have essentially all of our cash outflows right here. This represents all of our cash outflows. So we go ahead and do this. So we have our cash outflows right here. And then what's awesome is that all of our 4 payments here, well, they represent something easy as well. They represent all of our cash inflows. And our duty will be simple, to find the present value of both. Now, I'm going to give you a quick time value of money 101. Money that is received today, so at T0, is always going to be equal to itself. Now, I'm not going to give you a proof, but it's very simple. Something discounted to the power of 0 is going to be equal to itself. Okay? So that's important to understand. And here we're going to have our cash inflows. All right? So very easy. Already now, we quickly understand that our cash outflows, which is highlighted in blue, is going to be equal to $295,000. Okay? But our cash inflows, which is going to be, once again, as you can see above, our numerator, we're going to have to discount them. Now, you could discount your cash inflows in 2 different methods. Okay? So I'm going to zoom in once again to really showcase how we could go about doing that. So you could go about discounting your cash inflows in 2 different methods. You could do it by actually using the formula like a Neanderthal, or you go about it by just using your financial calculator. Okay, so those are the 2 methods. I'm going to highlight them for you right here. I'll put this like that. This is my very painful way of trying to have some nice notes for y'all. Okay, awesome. So there's 2 methods. There's a formula manner, and there's a calculator method. In this case, I really do believe that using the calculator would be the best way. Because if you use a calculator, all that you need to do is you need to use the CF function plus NPV, method, okay? Whereas with the formula, what you're going to be doing really is some painful stuff. Because you're going to be doing the sum of all the payments over 1 plus K to the power of that given payment year. So that's not going to be fun. Whereas with your calculator, all that you need to do, and I guess I'm highlighted here in like, I guess, red, pinkish. I don't even know what color this is. I might be colorblind. What you're going to do here is very simple. You're just going to input into your financial calculator. You're going to go and use the CF function. Then you're going to use the NPV function. That's all that you got to do there. So it's really painfully easy. And in this video, you're going to see how we're going to use the CF function to help us solve for the present value of our cash inflows. Okay, so very easy stuff. You'll see this in just a second. I'm going to try to be cute. and we're going to input this together as a team. Okay? So what I want you to do here is you're going to open your financial calculator. All right? And you're going to press the CF function. The CF function is this right here. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to be a nice person. Is I'm going to go grab a calculator here, Texas. And I'm going to also write it, or like copy it, I guess, onto the screen. So, give me a sec. Just grabbing a financial calculator that I could copy onto the screen. It won't be too long. It's not the best picture. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and use our financial calculator right here. Okay. So what you're going to do, just to make it easier, is you're going to go ahead onto your financial calculator, and you're going to be using what I'll highlight right here as being your CF function. So I guess that's not the best. You're going to be using this function right here, CF function, and then you're going to input a few different things I'm going to highlight together, and then you're going to use your NPV function right here. Okay, so don't you worry, we're going to do this together. So the first step here is that you're going to go into your CF function, you're going to press second clear work. And then for CF0, you're going to put nothing. Okay, so CF0 will be equal to 0. And the reason why it's equal to 0 because we only care about the present value of our individual cash inflows. We don't care about the whole NPV of the project. I'm not going to double down too much on that, but I hope that's clear. Then you're going to press arrow down, and you're going to get yourself to CO1. Okay? CO1 in this video, I mean in this case, is going to be equal to 75,000. Okay? So you're going to plug in 75,000. You're going to press enter. So 75,000 CO1. And press enter, and you're going to let frequency 01 be equal to 1. What does FO1 mean? It means the frequency. So how many times will a cash flow actually occur? Now I'm going to have to sneeze real quick. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. I've been having allergies. Hopefully I don't got anything too crazy. Sorry about that. That's just, it's the name of the game. Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good. It happens sometimes. Not bad. But okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. Sorry. This is me being painfully embarrassed on a video. So FO1 is going to be 1 because it displays the frequency. How many times is this individual payment actually occurring? Now, once you've done that, you can go arrow down again, and you're going to bring yourself, I guess, here, and you're going to get CO2. CO2 will be the second payment. The second payment here is essentially 112,500. So I'm going to write that down as well. Now, once again, by the way, don't hesitate to let me know if I made a mistake. I'm always open, and I always review them afterwards. So your mistake should already be like amended in the comments section or whatever, and in the PDF and the website and all that good stuff. So FO2 is equal to 1 as well. CO3 is going to be equal to 170K. Like at this point, you get the gist of it, right? FO3 is of course equal to 1. So you enter that, and then CO4 will be equal to 215. And then FO4 will be equal to 1 as well. Okay, so that's awesome. Now, once you've done that, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and click NPV. Okay, so you're going to go click here on NPV. So click NPV, and you're going to see I. Okay, what we're going to do here, so I'll write this, click NPV. Okay, And you're going to set I as being equal to 10.28%. So you're going to do 10.28, enter, arrow down, compute for NPV. So you're going to press compute for NPV. And you're going to get a nice little amount. You're going to get the answer. I'll put it up here. Present value for your cash inflows will be equal to 432,607.60. Okay, so that's awesome, because now if we zoom out a little bit, we have our cash inflows, the present value of those cash inflows, and we have our cash outflows, such that to solve for our PI, put this in a different color here, all that you're going to do is you're going to have this amount here, which we're going to copy because we're lazy and we don't want to write it again. You're going to have this amount divided by $295,000. And that's going to give you an interesting amount. Let's go figure it out together. So you're going to solve for it. Now, this is my first time doing this, so that's why I'm, a little bit slow. Not my first time ever doing a question, my first time doing this specific question. So in this case, your profitability index is going to be something along the lines of 1.4666534508. And this is your answer, y'all. This is your answer for this question. You were literally just putting the present value of your cash inflows over the present value of your cash outflows. Now, present value of money you received today is equal to itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick 2 seconds just to verify whether our inputs are correct. So we're going to have 170. We'll move on to the next question in just a second. Then if I were to, yeah, awesome. So we got the correct answer. Cool. So that said, that's how you solve a basic profitability index question, in which you have to use a formula, you have to identify the cash flows, and then you have to plug it in within your calculator. Why use the formula? The formula would probably take more time. Now in this video, in this section of the video, of course, it was longer, right? Because I was showing you how to use the calculator, assuming that this is the first time you've seen how to use the calculator. But if you're a seasoned vet, if this is what you've been doing all semester, you got this, and you skipped through the video and you found the answer. You're like, cool, that makes sense. Now we're going to move on to the second portion of this clip, in which we're going to look at a missing variable version of the profitability index, profitability index type of questions. So let's move on to slide 30, and you'll see why this is very particular, because we're going to be essentially diving deep and trying to find, well, what is the discount rate we would need if we had to solve, or if we had to try to gain something that would give us a profitability index of 3.28. Anyways, don't you worry. We're going to read the question together. We're going to go get that formula. We're going to stick it onto our little page here. And then we're just going to solve for a missing piece of the variable. It's going to be a walk in the park. You're going to love this. Okay, so let's do a different color yellow. Those are my type of problems. So suppose that Shai Designs wants to open a new architectural division in Dubai. Nice. However, the CEO is, unsure, and the CEO gave you the following cash flows for you to kind of make a decision on this project. Okay. So the CEO tells you, hey, the initial investment is of $295,000. So because now we're pros, we could just go ahead and highlight this as simply being a CF 0 of 295K. Okay. And in this case, though, you're getting perpetual cash flows of 82,280 per year. Okay. This is very important because Perpetual cash flows. If you remember what we did in the time value of money chapter, if you looked at those videos, if you went through my website, you know that perpetual cash flows is just another way to say that we're dealing with cash flows that will last forever, for an indefinite amount of time. It's a perpetuity. And we know that a perpetuity can be written as follows. This is a perpetuity. Okay, and we know that perpetuities can be written as PV0 is equal to payment 1 over K. And what's awesome here is that they actually highlighted the payment that you should look at. They highlighted a payment of 82,280. All right. So we already know what our payment is. Now, what's really interesting here is that we'll highlight this in red because it's our mission. They want to know, well, what is the appropriate discount rate? Okay. If Shy Designs wants this project to yield a profitability index of 3.28. Okay. So we could go ahead and highlight this in yellow again because our profitability index is going to be a clear or key variable that we need here. We're going to need this variable because we're going to solve for the K that's going to yield us a PI of 3.28. So that's what we want. Okay. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go highlight our formula again. You know, we need it. Why not use it? We're going to have it with us. It's going to be like our North Star here. So let's go ahead and highlight all of these together. We're going to go into our next question here. I'm going to copy it. So this is going to be like our North Star. And we're going to try to solve for the missing piece of the puzzle. That's often what we do in these types of questions, right? That's all we do, solving for a missing piece of the puzzle. So in this case, what's awesome, I'll kind of do a little game here, is that, I'll use green. We already know our PI, and we already know our cash outflow, but we're not too sure what the present value of our cash inflows is just yet. So I guess we could put this in red. So there's only one really missing variable here if you really want to get, hardcore. So what we're going to do is we're going to place in all of the data points that they gave us, and we're going to really showcase how we could solve for K here, how we could find this missing variable, and then it's a game of basic algebra, it's a game of basic math. So I'll zoom in once more, and we're going to have 3.28. It's going to be equal to the present value of cash inflows. In this case, we know that our cash inflows is a perpetuity, right? And that the payment would be 82,280. So we could go ahead and write that formula. So we could say that, well, our present value would be equal to payment over K. 1 over K. And we know that the present value of our cash outflows, well, that's light work. That's simply 295,000. It's not too hard. It's getting pretty straightforward to us. So we can go ahead, put this like that. So because we know this, I could even double down again and say, well, in this formula here, we already know our payment 1. We don't know our K yet because that's what we're solving for. So what you can do, I'm so sorry that it did that. It happens like in every video at this point. Anyways, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with my screen. There you go. Sorry about that. That it just, it happens. It makes the video more fun and cool. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do 3.28 is equal to, in this case, 82,280 divided by K over $295,000. And then it becomes easy because you're just solving for this missing variable. So we're going to do it together. Why not? I'm open to it. So you should get something like 967.6K, and that's going to be equal to 8280 over K, such that, I guess we could maybe move this a little bit. Just like that, such that 967K is equal to 82,280. And you could do this in a few ways, but you could just take that amount and divide it by figure in mind. You're going to get something like, that's not an ugly number. Not like that. If you saw that on an exam, you wouldn't freak out. You would get 8.5035%. And that would be your K. Really as easy as that. That would be your K. And it's really as easy as that. And I wish it was harder. But it really, wow. I wish there was like another key takeaway here, but these questions are questions that you see on an exam. And for some reason, students tend to struggle with that, right? Well, in this case, all that you had to do is you had to understand the formula, identify the variables that were provided, in which you knew, okay, well, I know my PI. I know the present value of my cash outflows because that's CF0. And then I know that the present value of my cash inflows, well, it's going to be easy. It's going to be the present value of my perpetuity. My perpetuity is simple. It's payment over K. You already have your payment. The missing variable is K. Apply a little bit of basic algebra, and you get your answer. So it's as easy as that. Now, I gave you exposure to profitability indices or index questions that you could see on your exam, either an intro to finance class for an undergrad or a finance recap during your MBA or master's, and even some context if you're doing your CFA level 1. So was this complicated? No. Will you get a lot of exposure to this in your classes? Perhaps not as much as like the NPV or the IRR, but it is still something that you should have in your toolbox, because on an exam, they may throw at you a bunch of things. And it's actually pretty easy to solve for. So with that said, I hope that this video helped you out. I hope that it gave you context on how to solve these questions. Be prepared, feel inspired, be empowered. And if you want to have more exposure to these things, you're in the right place. Because if you go on my website, you're going to find a bunch of questions like these. If you go on my YouTube channel, you're going to see a bunch of other videos where I walk through this step by step. So, hopefully this helps. My goal is to try to make this something that's accessible, fun, and actually enjoyable for you. So I'll see you in the next one, and hopefully this helps. Bye bye.